Hi guys, it's me, Phil. Welcome back. It's well, this morning we did our Let's Draw. Now we're in Photoshop, and we're going to be I've scanned this in. We're going to be doing a sort of a Let's Render. So the morning session, hopefully you guys had a chance to follow along. I don't even know if it uploaded in the morning, but hopefully you've had a chance to follow along and draw a shoe of your own. If you don't have your own shoe that you've scanned in, and it's not looking fire like my shoe, then there's a link down in the comments and you can download this shoe, this actual shoe, should you so choose to. So what we're going to do is we're just going to do a nice quick render using all of the techniques that we've talked about before. We're also, if you were here for, I think the session on Friday, we used a particular masking technique using the quick mask. I've got my brushes set up just here. I'll be kind of recapping that, and we're going to be using that technique as well. But just like all of the things when we've just bought a crappy JPEG into Photoshop, here we go. We've got background in italics. We're going to smash that lock, brap, and it changes it to layer 0. Guys, name your layers. This layer is going to be called sketch because it's the sketch that we did. I'm going to set it to multiply. And I'm going to just create because it's still, look guys, we need to tidy this up. It's a mess. I've not had a chance to do it yet, so let's go to adjustments, desaturate. You see that it kills all of the color information. I'm going to go here to the adjustment layers, levels, and we've got our little histogram. Now remember, the histogram, the height of the little tower and everything shows how much on this artboard there is of each of these different pixel levels. So there's no pure white, there's no pure black. There's this here spike, little tiny flat spike here is the grey of the pen lines. This big tower just here is the grey of the page and my marker pen underdrawing. So if you watched the earlier session, you see that I've used a marker pen with light grey to kind of use the 1-point perspective construction to build the artwork. So I'm going to drag the white point to the left. I'll drag the black point to the right. So we want to have a bit denser black lines, and I want to get rid of the bite of the page. So I'm not going to go crazy with this, but I'm going to just use the dodge tool set to highlights. Guys, that's important for this. Lower exposure, and I'm on the sketch layer. So now wherever I drag, we just clear all of that up. Nope, grab the wrong bit. Okay, so that looks about right. Hopefully we've not lost too much of the original drawing. So I'm going to Control E and flatten that down. So now we've got just the sketch layer, and I'm going to make a new layer underneath, which is going to be called paint, and we're ready to rock and roll. I'm going to just click Control S, shoe, blue, ting, nice, sorted, save, nope, wrong, desktop, save. So I'm going to flood fill this paint layer using 50% grey, midpoint grey. So when you do this, guys, remember you've got to be using HSB for the colours. So up here in the colour window, drop down HSB sliders, hue, saturation and brightness. I'm going to set this to 50%. I'm making sure that I'm on the paint layer just here. Alt, backspace on the keyboard, flood fills with foreground colour. So I'm going to just go in and render using the same method that we normally do. B on the keyboard for brush. You see I've got my airbrush set just here. Alt and Control with your key, Alt and Control, right mouse button, drag left and right to increase and decrease the size of the brush. I'm going to reduce the opacity down to 10% by clicking 1 on the keyboard. And I'm also going to set my foreground and background colours to black and white by clicking D on the keyboard. D is the default color set, and it just switches it straight away over. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to very gently, sort of in a very general way, sort of paint in the shape of the artwork of the shoe. So I have a highlight here, catch light at the back. So catch light just here. Normally I'd wait until a little bit later in the project to do this, but I kind of want to get a better view of how it looks as a whole. So I'm going to click on the sketch, W for the Magic Wand tool, or select it from behind the quick selection tool. I'm going to expand that selection by 3 so that our selection line is inside the outside line of the shoe. Click on the paint layer and click on the quick mask. Don't do that. Control Shift I to invert the selection. Click on the quick mask, layer mask, just there. So we're getting there with some of the three-dimensional shape. So the reason why I said quick mask is because I've got quick mask on the brain. I'm going to click Q on the keyboard. Remember that pops us into the quick mask mode. I'm going to click the full stop button there. Period, I think some people call it. Set the opacity to 100%. I'm going to switch black as my foreground colour, and that's going to let me paint the selection area that I want. Q to drop out of quick mask. Select the right brush, reduce the opacity, switch over to black. That's annoying. It's going to create the shading for the inside section. So I want to just select just the upper, well, the upper, whatever this top part of the shoe is called. I actually don't know all the terminology. Upper, I think that's right, upper. So I'm just going to use the paths tool to do that, the pen. Just take a chance on it, yes, being called that, fine. Just going to add a very slight little so just there. Okay. Just pull that section down. So I clicked M so that what I'm moving around is the selection rather than the what's the word? Rather than the pixels. And I'm going to hold down, this is a weird one, Control and Alt and click on the upper. And what it's done is it's removed that selection from my selection on screen. So now I can paint in this section here. It's a real nice little technique. So I've just juggled the selections around, so now I've selected everything apart from this upper and that bit just there, which lets me add a little bit of shading just there. So let's just create a new path just here called heel bubble, whatever that is. So I want that to be lighter than the heel background now. So by having that gradient that goes from this grey to dark up to light to grey again, it obviously becomes a kind of scoop in. So we've got this nice sort of dimensionality to the heel. So let's use a similar technique to what we just did. So I'm going to select just this section here. I'm just juggling these selections around again. It's just the same way as we just did. If I can get it right. Why is that doing that? Okay, weird. Oh, I see, because I've got this selection inverted. My days. It's been a bit of a weird day today, guys, so I'm just going to have to apologise for the old brain breaks. So kind of what we're doing with these selections is we're just kind of creating almost like little templates and stencils. And we're able to sort of juggle them around. Move them around on the artboard to create these areas that we can paint inside. So let's do the same with this actual upper just here. So we're going to go into Quick Mask, making sure that we've got all of the right selections made. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select basically the inside of this area, the tongue just here. Like this. And then I'm switching over the colour that I'm painting with. I'm going to paint the laces in. And hopefully you'll see what this will do in a second. I'll just use my pen to do this, it's probably a bit faster. Too much highlight on that. I don't think I needed that much highlight. Just wanted to have this slight shadow in place just here. Again, I want to have a little bit of shadow around the front of the toe box here. I think that's what it's called. It's a bit much actually, but okay. Right, let's just jump in with a pen again. So I've got all these bits selected. Let's see if we can do something with this. We're in the airbrush. We've got a black as a foreground colour, low opacity. I'm just going to let's hide that so that we can see it slightly differently. So remember, if you click Control H whilst you've got some selections made, it hides the selection and lets you see just the actual artwork. Just drink this. Delicious. Okay, So what I want to do now is not so much work inside these, but to create a little bit of almost like a bevel around the outside. So if you've got a shape like this selected, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Select, Expand, so Modify, Expand, say, let's see, 5 pixels? No, that's nowhere near big enough. So Select, Modify, Expand, 15 pixels. A little bit more, Select, Expand, 20, I'll do it. That'll do us. Right, so now where I paint is going to paint inside these selections, but what I want is only to be inside there. So I'm going to click Control Alt on Surface Deets, and you see it knocks out that central bit, which means that now I can paint these nice highlights here and nice shadows here. So we can make that bit there pop a little bit. We can make this bit here sink down a bit more. I think that looks quite good. Let's deselect that. So I want to do something kind of similar for this top section here. But first of all, let's just, I'm actually going to use the pen tool for this. I'm going to make a selections for the laces. And I'm going to do it as a single shape, basically. So hopefully you can see that kind of in the past when we've done these rendering sessions, we've generally just stuck to sort of certain key techniques. It's kind of because what I've been trying to do is just like teach those techniques. Whereas this, what I'm doing now, is kind of a combination of everything. Because once you've got your toolkit, in terms of the techniques that you're going to use, you'll find that sometimes you need to do one thing, sometimes you need to do something else, and you'll alternate between all of the different techniques that you know. Okay, so I'm going to make the selection here M, so that I'm moving just the selection. Control Alt on the tongue so that we knock out the actual selection of the tongue, and then Control Alt on the laces. And so now all we've got selected is this nice front edge just here. We'll click on the laces. Probably do the same sort of thing for whatever this part of the shoe is called. So again, I'm just going to see, no, I'm going to do that expand on this one, modify, expand, 20, Control Alt. So let me show you something else. I want to just make a selection on the top just here, which is going to be just this top section of the shoe here. Now if I selected this, I want to paint a highlight in because I want to make sure that that top section is slightly lighter. It's too hard an edge. So sometimes you might want to make a selection like that. Now if I go into Quick Mask, that area is selected. And what I can do now in Quick Mask is, I can blur the mask. So when I drop out of Quick Mask, we've got a nice soft selection. So I feel like we've got somewhere now at least with our shape. I'm just going to use the path tool to select some of the sole, so I can add a sort of a detailing ridge down here. And so what I can do with this, to make the selection, go into Quick Mask, to stop down the size of the brush, Q, stroke path with brush, to come out of Quick Mask, and I can use a shadow brush like this, and a highlight brush like this. You can see that we've got this nice differential between these two layers now. So we had this, let's just use the ellipses to what was I doing? I was in Quick Mask and making selections. Okay, right, totally unnecessary, least necessary masking ever. Could just have done the selections in regular. The lace is not particularly well defined. Okay, it's just, I feel like I'm getting into the swing of it now. Offset like that. at all. That way is the better way to do it. Okay. All right, so not disastrous so far. Let's just wrong. Okay, right. Half an hour in, I think that we've got quite a nice level of three-dimensionality on this one. The more that we belabor this, then the less that it looks like a sketch, the more that it looks like a final render. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to add a sort of a texture layer to it. If you remember, we did this sort of texture before. Add noise. Let's blur that a bit. Blur more. And then we go to stylize and emboss. Set that to overlay. So this would be good texture for certainly the sole of the shoe. Okay, so that's the sole selected. If I could just, I think I might actually always make the sole darker. Okay. Right. Probably opacity down a bit on this. So one of the things that I wanted to show you was a technique that I've got for doing stitching. So first of all, let me explain to you how you do this. So you use a brush. What we need to do is open up the brush settings. So we want to have a hard brush, so go up to 100% hardness. Stop the size right down. Let me just make a new layer so you can see this. Stop the size right down. So we want to have to the size of the stitch that we want. Pull the width of the brush like this. shape dynamics, we want angle jitter and set this one to direction. And then we're going to increase the spacing so that we get this kind of stitch. I love it. It's just such a funny little trick in Photoshop. Once you've got that set dead right, we can just save that as stitch. Let's just save all of the settings for this one because it's very specific. So anywhere that we want to add some stitching in, we can just do that now, which obviously will look not very good at the moment. So the way that I do this is I'm going to make a new path set, which is going to be called all stitches. And everywhere where I want there to be a stitch line, I'm going to make sure that there's a pen line. So I can always use the masks that we've already created and just the eraser to delete bits that go too far or go into the wrong area. Okay, so here we go. I make sure that I've got my stitch selected. I'm going to have black as the foreground colour. It doesn't actually matter because we're going to be recolouring it in a minute. Smash this button just here. And so suddenly the shoe is entirely stitched. So I'm going to lock the transparency on this so that we've got a lighter stitch. And then I'm going to use this setting just here. So first of all, I'm going to go into Bevel and Emboss. And I want to have inner bevel. Let's just pick a slightly darker colour because it's not really working. So with a darker colour, let's try that. Ah, yeah, that's getting there, right. So we want it to be quite small size. Just ramp the depth up to a point where you think it's going to work. Because what you want to do is not necessarily for it to be sort of super noticeable. But for it to still stand out. So once we've got that, that looks about right. I want to have a drop shadow on it with 0 distance, and I just want it to, this is going to help it to pop a little bit. me just reduce the opacity of it a little tiny bit. Perhaps reduce the beveling a little bit because it doesn't quite work the way they wanted it to. Deleting the bits where it overlaps. Okay, that works okay. Most of the places where it is visible, it seems like it makes sense at least. I'm just going to use Bing on my other monitor, which you can't see over here, to search for a leather texture. Oh no, absolutely no internet whatsoever, that's great. Let me use just my existing resource of textures then. Graphics resources, here we go. Textures, please have a texture that's the one that I want. Leather. Yeah, there's a leather, that's a leather texture. So I'm going to just open that into Photoshop. Open with... So if you guys remember from the way that we've handled these colors, textures before, I'm going to just desaturate this. I want to make sure that it is sort of balanced more or less right for what I want. I want to have the midpoint in the center there. Okay, let's just do that. Actually, auto contrast is usually best for this. Fine. I want to make sure that it tiles properly, which at the moment it clearly doesn't do. So I'm going to, rather than doing that, I'm going to just copy a section of it. Go into the shoe, make sure that it's scaled properly. Okay, looks like that'll probably work. Where am I looking? Huh, well that's handy. Define pattern is not selected. Yeah. No clue. Now it's selected. Will it work? It looks okay. Okay, non-terrible, not a disaster. It at least looks like a shoe. So let me add a little bit of colour to this. Hue and saturation. Actually, that would be better the other way around, wouldn't it? The light. So let's add the hue and saturation with this. And add the laces to that. And let's add a slightly different colour to this. Again, I think we've discovered that my ability to render these things outstrips my ability to make tasteful decisions about how they should actually look. Maybe that's it. Maybe it doesn't have that. It's white and it's just got this jazzy as heck red. Let's make it so that it's compatible with the gaming chair that we designed the other day. There we go. Right, I'm going to chop it off there, guys, at 48 minutes. The shoe does not look appallingly bad. It's not absolutely perfect, but then it will take a little bit longer for us to get it absolutely perfect. Hopefully you've been able to see that we've used a whole range of different techniques to create these like sort of sculptural shapes around the shoe. We've used a different trick to get the stitches, which I don't love on this, but sometimes it works. Sometimes it works. It doesn't work that well on this. But it does help define some of the surface detailing. The masking's reasonably precise. If you turn the sketch off, it doesn't look awful, but it still doesn't look good enough to stand by itself. Yeah, I feel like we got somewhere with that. If anybody's got any questions, as per usual, if you guys can ask them down in the comments. I'm still not happy with this, guys. I'm still not happy with this texture just here. Let me see if I can make a new texture based on the dark texture, noise, add noise. Okay, we blur that a lot, so we use Gaussian blur with a larger blur radius. And then we use emboss on that. Yeah. Overlay. Okay, fine. Okay, like, I'm just going to stop because otherwise I'm going to spend the entire rest of the day drawing this flipping shoe. Let's just make a slightly more organised pattern here. So this one's going to be called Shadow. BG, I'm going to put a gradient across the background. And I'm going to put all of these in a folder called Finish, which I can just hide to see the original. Okay, fine. It's at least more organized now. I always say, you guys, you're playing yourself if you don't organize everything. It's a little bit organized. There's the shoe. That's me, Phil Smith. Hopefully you guys have been able to follow along. God, admittedly, it's not just been a follow along kind of thing. But if you guys get anywhere with your own renders, if you have a shoe that you've drawn, if you've painted the shoe that I've just shown you guys, you've come up with your better colorways that doesn't look quite as car crashy as mine with the old mint green toothpaste color on it, then I'd love to see it. Send me a message in the Discord, send me an email. If you've got any questions, ask down in the comments. Smash the like button, doesn't really do anything, I don't care. If you subscribe and add the tick the notification bell, then every time I upload one of these videos, you guys are going to get notified about it, and you'll be able to drop literally everything in your entire life and then like follow along, because it's the most important thing happening. Hopefully you guys are surviving quarantine. I'm going to click the stop recording button now and stop talking. So that's it. Stay safe, be good, and Photoshop on. Hurrah!